Will Venable is challenging the White Sox to be better, and maybe he should challenge himself to do the same, at least when it comes to managing his bullpen. Let's discuss on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and contributor for SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. Additionally, follow or subscribe to the show on your preferred podcast platforms. Well, the White Sox fought the Tigers tooth and nail, but ended up losing 2-1 in part of another example of Will Venable potentially being a terrible bullpen manager that I want to discuss. Then let's continue to celebrate Colson Montgomery as he hit another home run last night. And he's doing things that you and I have not seen since Jose Abreu. And then I'll take your questions on this special live edition of those watching on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your future bets now. All right, so Will Venable. I think he's done a good job of challenging the White Sox to get better lately. I mean, amazing what happens when you hire someone who isn't all about grindy and using acronyms like FAST, or we're going to kick your butt every day at 7 p.m. You know, when you actually get a smart, intelligent guy who's actually played at the major leagues, amazing how the team looks a little bit better. I mean, Pedro Grifol was just an absolute waste of our time. And there, I said it. And for example, Venable, he's challenged the lineup to hit fastballs better. And lo and behold, there's been improvement. And now he's challenging them to hit better with runners in scoring position. But Venable should also challenge himself to do better handling the bullpen, because last night's decision to pitch Brandon Eisert in the ninth with a 1-1 tie, well, it's a big reason why the White Sox took a loss. I mean, obviously, getting better at hitting with runners in scoring position is a huge issue, and they had a chance to go up in the eighth. But, it's one of those things where if you go with Eisert, who's not very good in high leverage situations, might be a reason why he loses, because, again, he gives up the home run to Spencer Torkelson. And I know I've said wins and losses don't matter this season. Development does. But Venable keeps giving off vibes that managing a bullpen will not be his strong suit. And that's a little bit scary because, as I've said, there's a couple of criteria outside of wins and losses. And again, you can't apply wins and losses to Will Venable this year. It's just not fair. The talent's not there. I mean, think about it. If he wins 56 games this year, that'll be an accomplishment, because that'll be a 15-game win improvement, that type of stuff. And, one of the things, though, that you have to then look at is the tertiary stuff, the context stuff. And one of them is in-game decisions. And, we've seen his bullpen decisions sometimes not work out. I mean, I like that he is embracing that sometimes the biggest outs don't come in the ninth inning. So why save your best relievers for an instance that might not happen? But at the same point, a big out was, 3 big outs needed to be gotten in the ninth last night, and it didn't happen. And I get it was a bullpen game, and Jonathan Cannon's struggles could not have come at a worse time. One of the reasons why the White Sox have now had to do basically 2 bullpen games in a row if tonight's game is played. But still, the rest of the rotation is just not eating innings, too. And that is kind of making it difficult to manage the bullpen to begin with. This is per Kyle Williams of the Chicago Sun-Times. This is what he wrote yesterday. Entering Monday, Sox starters had thrown the 4th fewest innings, 54, since July 28th. And that's a huge risk when you've got a bunch of young pitchers already getting at their career innings limit. So being able to push the right buttons, that is a critical thing that you would like to see Will Venable develop into. And, do we have to be fair to him, though? Because the White Sox, while the bullpen ERA is getting much better, I know Chuck Garfien has tweeted out, I talked about it on Friday, that my dream of a cheap, effective bullpen could be coming to fruition. But so far, everybody's terrible in high leverage situations outside of Grant Taylor. So maybe Venable should challenge these guys to actually do better. But maybe they just don't have the stuff to thrive in high leverage situation. Grant Taylor does, because Grant Taylor can throw his fastball 103 miles an hour. He's got a 2.85 FIP in high leverage situations, and he already pitched in the 8th inning. And this is a guy that everyone is clamoring to be a starter someday. So try him out as your 2-inning high leverage guy. Can he get those 6 critical outs you need? But instead, going to Isert in a tough situation cost the White Sox because Spencer Torkelson hits a solo shot off the left field foul pole. And again, why you question the decision per Fangraphs, Isert has a 4.79 FIP with a 5.65 expected fielding independent pitching in high leverage situations. Opponent batting average, 304. The whip, 244. And again, I've come around to, I know I was hammering Isert at the beginning of the year, but I've come around to like him. But he's a medium leverage guy. He's not a high leverage guy. He's a guy that he's a lefty that you bring in the sixth. Because medium leverage, 242 opponent batting average, a 1 whip, 2.88 FIP with an expected FIP of 278. So he actually should be better in medium leverage situations. And, so that's just what he is. He's a minus 0.83 win probability added. That's not a guy that screams, put him in a very key situation. And while I get his strikeout percentage is good at 26%, he's mostly spin. And if you leave something up over the plate like he did, since he doesn't have the velocity to sneak mistakes by someone, you're going to see the ball get hit a very, very far distance, like has happened in the last 2 high leverage situations for Isert. So maybe you should have tried Taylor. But when it comes to looking at, again, Venable, because, again, we just can't judge him on wins and losses right now. As I said in the offseason, and I wrote it on SouthsideShowdown.com, and every day, as you might remember, going back in time, I did an episode on this. There's other things we need to then, set the standard of him to, at least how to evaluate the job he's doing. Clubhouse management. I think things seem very good there. Seems like all the guys like each other. And it's not like he has to have a kumbaya clubhouse, but you would like to have guys that just don't dread showing up to work, basically, like under Pedro Grifol or under Tony La Russa. Quasi-assistant general manager, because that's one of the things that Chris Getz is looking for. He was looking for a partner. Obviously, there's still growth for him and Getz there, but at least I think he's establishing, hey, let's get some balance in the lineup, that type of stuff. Set the standard and hold players accountable. I think that seems to be there. And I think, what was it? He pulled Brooks Baldwin after he dropped that fly ball and left. Was it Sunday or was it Saturday? Anybody in the comments, if you remember, put it in there. But it was one of those things where he obviously pulled him. Now, to also make sure that the new generation player isn't called out publicly, because Gen Z doesn't like that. He kind of said, well, I just kind of wanted to get him out of there. It's a tight situation, but it felt like he was holding him accountable. Make sure the players are prepared to play that game in front of them. And for the most part, they have been playing cleaner baseball. Obviously, you still get those Luis Robert Jr. 3 strike Ks and Lenine Sosa looking foolish. But for the most part, the team still looks more prepared. And then serving as the control for the computer spitting on a lineup card that doesn't make any sense. There have been some questionable lineup cards like last Saturday. And he's also been playing Josh Rojas a bit too much. But it seems like he's coming around to hey, we should play Curtis Mead maybe. But then it comes down to make good in-game decisions. And right now, it keeps trending toward being concerned. However, let's see if the bullpen can get some upgrades in the offseason. All right, speaking of upgrades, Colson Montgomery has been setting the world on fire with 10 home runs in 32 games. Only Jose Abreu and some dude named Zeke Bonera got to that mark faster for the White Sox. And let's discuss how Montgomery could be this rebuild's Jose Abreu after the break. If you're running a business and you know that every missed call is money left on the table, think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a bursted pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? No, called the next one. And that's why having a reliable business line is so important. And that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Do you juggle 2 phones just to keep your business and personal calls separate? OpenPhone solves that instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. So no more, hey, who's handling this? And I'm always telling my friends who run their own businesses, get OpenPhone. You need to worry about making your business successful, not your phone needs. And OpenPhone can just take care of it like that. OpenPhone is offering Locked On White Sox listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnMLB. FanDuel.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have an existing number with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. And I always keep saying the traditional money lines, over-unders, and spreads, they are fun to play on FanDuel. But the futures, along with the props and the parlays, that's how you can win some serious cash on FanDuel. Maybe this is the year Josh Allen in Buffalo breaks through and wins the Super Bowl. They are at plus 700, so $10 on that right now. The last time I checked would win you $70. Let's say Justin Herbert dazzles enough to win the MVP. He's at plus 2,000, so $10 on that is $200 in your pocket if he wins the NFL MVP. Personally, I'm going to play it safe with going Patrick Mahomes MVP and Philadelphia repeating. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Days is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't get the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms, so make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. And yes, this is a live edition here on YouTube. And then for those, I'll get this up for those listening on Apple or Spotify later. I've just been running errands today, and you know what? There's a rain delay, so I figured, hey, you know what? Let me talk with you, the everydayer, with you, the listener, with you, the White Sox fan. And let's do it live in there. And I've got already a couple of comments that I'm going to definitely hit. Brian and Don, don't worry. I'm going to get to that in the next segment. So Jose Abreu got to 10 career home runs in just 26 games in 2014 per Sarah Langs. That's on X, formerly Twitter, at Slang Sports. Colson needed 32 and a torpedo bat to get to there. Although, again, I'm not knocking Colson using the torpedo bat. It's an ingenious bat. It's an ingenious move. And as Will Venable said after the game last night, you know, Colson's could probably crush with any type of bat. I mean, the way that he has been when he makes contact, he's hitting it a long way that, you know, he could have a tree branch and he's probably going to hit a home run. And, you know, when he hit that 10th home run yesterday, it was one of those things where it's like, first of all, should we dare to dream? Can he reach 20 this year? Because I'm still setting the mark for him reaching 20 or 30 next year. But the heater he's on right now, as long as torpedo bats are still legal, as long as he still has a full supply, he's got a chance to definitely hit the ball deep. And I'll say this, let's dare to dream he can have a storied career like Jose Abreu. You might be saying, Todd, you're getting way too ahead of your skis, and I might. But think about where Colson is right now in his rookie career compared to Jose Abreu. First of all, Colson's 23. Abreu was already a grown man. He was 27 during his rookie season. And he had a full season. He played a full year. He had 36 home runs in 2014. Colson's been up since July 2nd. Now, contact-wise, obviously, Colson has a long way to go to ever touch Abreu, who had 3 full seasons of hitting 300. Not really going to fully count the 2020 season, even though he won the MVP, and he probably would have hit 300 had there been a full season. It was just, there were 60 games. It was a sprint. And I will say this, hitting 300 should count for something, as I know there is the full side of the metrics, of the sabermetrics party, that just wants to totally kill average. And I sort of get it, because I get, and on the other side, the far side, there's the folks that just believe, you know, we've been conditioned to believe average is the metrics, the hitting champ, you know, Ted Williams hitting 400 and George Brett and Tony Gwynn, all great hitters, obviously. But the one thing I will say, if somebody hits 300, that should still count for something as impressive as, I don't, you know, that's still, you know, we consider 300 making up, you know, if you have even a 300 on base percentage, but a 450 OPS, you're still considered a decent hitter OPS wise. So it'd just be the same to me. So if you hit over 300, that should count still for something. And the way that I look at it, you know, I have mentioned batting average is becoming old school, and I agree why. Because you should want your hitters to do damage, not just hit singles. And Abreu and Colson, Abreu definitely did damage. But I prefer actually, and that's why you hear me sometimes saying OPS or slash line, because I think that tells the whole story as what type of hitter you are. Because think about this. In 2021, Abreu hits 261, but he had a 351 on base percentage and a 481 slugging percentage, drove in 117 runs. I know I don't always go over RBIs just because, again, you need opportunities. Like RBIs are dependent on other people getting on base, and he hit 30 home runs. But even though he hit 261, he got on base on a good clip, crushed the ball when he did make contact. And where I still think average absolutely ultimately will always matter is average with runners in scoring position. And he hit 286. Now, obviously, Colson this month has a 206 batting average, but he has a 984 OPS so far for the month of August because his slug is 676. Again, average sometimes just doesn't tell the whole story. But Jose Abreu and the 117 RBIs, 86 of which came from hitting with runners in scoring position in 2021 when the team won the division, was one of the reasons he hit 286 with runners in scoring position, because that's where you don't care if you get a hit or a home run. You just want to score the run. So that's why my proposal to make batting average matter again is display OPS if there's no one on base, even on the stadium. I know a lot of stadiums are going now to OPS. If there's no one on base, display OPS, because that can sometimes still tend to tell a better, like, hey, this guy does get on base a little bit more, or yeah, show the full slash line too, like in their little graphic. Or again, I like how slash line is being showed more and more, like on ESPN, even on CHSN. But what I want to see is display batting average with runners in scoring position if there's a run scoring opportunity, because again, just get a hit. That's what matters. Home run, single, who cares? Drive in the run. Anyways, sorry to detour there. That's why, again, I'm not going to worry too much about Colson's current average and strikeouts, because he's just doing damage like Abreu did in 2021 or 2014. And don't worry, Brian, I'm going to get to you. And I get he won the MVP in 2020, and that would be awesome if Colson Montgomery ever won an MVP. But give me those 2021 numbers for Colson that Jose Abreu had. And that's, if you give me that yearly, that is a great career. Although I'd like him to do better than the 2.8 F4 with better defensive numbers at short and third. And maybe that has to be another standard for Colson for him to reach superstar status. I've every day, as you've heard me give the 4 criteria. Maybe the 5th should be, can you make more contact to be in that 260 average range? But I would say Abreu's hitting floor, and then regularly crush 25 to 35 home runs. And if he does that, then maybe he is the next face of the franchise. So again, I'm doing a special live episode since the game is delayed. And like I said, I've been running family errands all day, and I want to make Tuesday's mailbag a thing. Talk to me, or it was Talk You Off Tuesday is what Drew Boggs on Twitter suggested I call that. Either way, I just want to make sure I'm taking your questions. You get a chance every week to voice your opinion, and I can share it with the rest of our audience. So I'm going to do that next on Locked On White Sox. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Day Hue. So is this hat that I'm wearing. White Sox fans like me, this one hits the mark. Game Day Hue makes clean, no logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. It's all about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on any game day, on the course, or anywhere in between. And you know me, I love my hat since I got a big old bald spot, got this receding hairline. Look at that. Getting old stinks. I love how this hat fits so comfortably. And I even gave one to my father-in-law. Loves wearing this hat. Loves it. So comfortable. And it's not just hats. Check out their split shade golf gloves. Made for the golf course, or the perfect gift for the fan who has everything. I can't wait to put this on at the course, grip it, and rip it. Right now, you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDayHue.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals, so now's the time to load up. Let your colors talk, because colors speak louder than words. That's GameDayHue.com, code MLB15. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, wherever they get their podcast. This show is available on all major podcast platforms. And this is now your segment. I'm doing this thing live. So here we go. Let's start with Brian Murray. He's been in the comments. He started off and he's got a chain going on here. He wants to say, sign Kyle Schwarber. And then he goes on. Signing Schwarber does 3 things. 1, left-handed power, I agree. 2, fan favorite. And 3, show the fans you're willing to shell out money. 4 years, 130 does it. I am completely on board with that. There, Brian, I think you make excellent sense. I would love for the White Sox to sign Kyle Schwarber. I would have loved the White Sox to sign Kyle Schwarber when he was basically available for nothing. Remember, the Cubs non-tendered him. They just let him go. Let him go. I mean, maybe they were banking on he'd be like Gavin Sheets. I mean, because Gavin Sheets has returned to normal. But you non-tendered, first of all, you non-tendered a World Series hero. Like, Kyle Schwarber will always be a Cubs hero. And you non-tendered him. And that's why, like, hey, we can be frustrated with with Chris Getz and how he was hired, and some of those times that where he makes decisions where it's like, what are you doing? But I'd rather have him, like, be more of, hey, I'm going to stick to my price. If I don't have to trade a guy, I'm just not going to make a bad trade. Where on the flip side, I think Jed Hoyer tries to be the smartest guy in the room and ends up looking like completely foolish. So, yeah, I would love, because, again, even though Schwarber's 32, all you're asking him to do is just hit home runs. And that's all really the Phillies are asking him to do. And he definitely looks like has the swing, especially against lefties now, where he will hit home runs. And what does the best White Sox team need? The better White Sox teams, they need guys who can hit home runs. So I'm fully on board with you, Brian. Good comment. Thank you. All right, let's get to Dan. Dan Berta, he puts in the chat, the team has almost no talent no matter who pitches. They're set up for failure. I hope they lose every game while Jerry owns the team. And he later puts in, Jerry says he wants to fix the team before he sells. When you won't spend money and no $100 million contracts, team has almost no chance. They have never been good at drafting or developing young. First of all, the skepticism is completely earned, Dan. You definitely have the right to feel that way because it's been earned. But, Garrett Crochet was a guy that they drafted and developed. On the flip side, I would say, throw it in the chat, but they traded him because they weren't going to pay him. That makes a ton of sense. And Ted responded to in the chat. And again, why am I reading it? Well, you can see it on YouTube. It's for the folks that are listening that will eventually listen via Apple or Spotify. Tud here puts Dan Berta. Their pitching has been fine this season, below average offense, though. So, again, and the Jerry hate is fine, but I don't want to spend 4 more years just watching the White Sox lose. I already spent 2024 watching them lose an historic amount of games. I'm enjoying this season. I really am. Sometimes I sound skeptical, but again, one of the things that I've always told you guys is I'm going to inform you, I'm going to challenge you, I'm going to try to entertain you, and I'm going to try to give you the 360. So again, I hope I gave you the 360, for example, in the first segment with Will Venable. I'm still high on Will Venable, but I'm concerned on one of the things that he has to be very good at if you want a +4 manager is in the bullpen. And yeah, Jerry not spending stinks. It's the worst. And it's even worse that we got to wait 4 more years, or again, we have to wait for him to die, which is even worse to think about. Like, you got to wait for a human being to pass away for things to potentially get better. But I don't think I can go 4 years of just, hey, lose every game, be historic, because, hey, clearly Jerry has no problem wearing it. He does not have a problem wearing it. And drafting and developing, I think it was what James Fegan or Jim Margulis wrote on Sox Machine. Maybe things are changing. Maybe culturally. And that was one of the reasons why I said, hey, trade Luis Robert Jr. But then again, if you can get his price down to 10 to 15 million and him saying, hey, I actually don't mind it here, and he's starting to get it, things could be changing. And yeah, the pitching has been fine. Although, as I said in the first segment, it's not, Sean Burke and Shane Smith are just not getting through deep into games. Davis Martin sometimes is. So they're not getting any much length. That was one of the things that was the risk when you traded Adrian Hauser. And I think you should have traded Adrian Hauser because you needed, he's basically a bonus. He wasn't on your opening day roster. And if Aaron Savali is effective, he can still eat up innings, but still it's only 5 or 6. So you are, like I said, to be fair to Will, they don't have a lot of great options in the bullpen. On the flip side, though, look at your data and say, I don't think, Brandon Iser can do this. All right, Don, you also said I've been going to 30 games a year for 30 years, sick of Jerry. Well, okay, and definitely you have a reason to definitely be sick of him because, I would love to go to 30 games a year for 30 years. That's an awesome streak. I actually respect you for doing that, even though, hey, and I'm sure one of the reasons, maybe I'm making an assumption, you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but, it's good that you're going to games, but it also puts money in Jerry's pocket. So you're like, darned if you do, darned if you don't. But it's just one of those things where I think one way to frame it, I would say, is it just stinks that we have to deal with this guy for 4 more years potentially and up to 2034. I mean, why do you think you're going to make things better, Jerry? And I'm sorry to go on a Jerry tangent, but hey, Don wants to talk about Jerry. I'm here. I want you guys to feel like you can talk about things and that I will actually try to read it. And again, you can email me your mailbag questions, lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. To my guy, Cindy, who emailed me, yes, I'm fine. My basement got completely flooded, as I talked about. Dealing with issues. That's one of the reasons why, too, if you're like, Todd, why are you like in this bedroom? I'm in a temporary location in my house where my recording studio that I have in the basement, it's completely, smelling of like mildew. It's a mess right now. So it's one of those things. All right. Hey, Brian, Josh Naylor would be nice at first. Yes. Sign him up. Get me Josh Naylor, just because I don't care if the White Sox sign him next year to play first base and all he ever did for the rest of his career is hit 202, that's fine because I'm tired of him hitting like 400 with 1,000 OPS and 45 home runs against the White Sox. Now, I would love for him to actually do that for the White Sox. That would be amazing. And that's why I like to, why not see if he can do something for you? So, Brian, excellent point. And then back to Don, Jerry hires from within. I will believe in change when I see other people coming in from the organization who had been winning well. I mean, yeah, Getz was hired from within, but Josh Barfield came from the Diamondbacks, and he was part of that development team that got them, to this World Series. They went to a World Series. You see with what Jin Woo, he's I believe from the I believe he's from is he from the Dodgers? He's another guy. Brian Bannister, obviously from Boston and the Giants, and when the Giants won like 115 games. And then Ryan Fuller from the Orioles, now the hitting director. So they've got key guys, and like Paul Janich, they brought him in. So yes, Chris Getz is there. And I believe that, again, the skepticism is earned. It is fully earned. And you have every right, especially if you go to 30 games a year for 30 years, that's a lot of money you're putting in, and you would like to see something decent. Let's see. Howard. I have a feeling if they sign Naylor for a mega contract, that would turn out to be Adam Dunn 2.0. Well, yeah, but like I said, I know, Howard, my logic might not be great, but I'm just tired of Josh Naylor owning the White Sox. I was so relieved when he got traded to the Diamondbacks, where I was like, man, this guy only has to mess with me 3 times a year. And then he got traded to the Mariners. I'm like, oh, come on, I got to deal with this guy 3 more times. But you're right, 6 times rather than would you want to deal with him 162 with the potential risk of him aging terribly. And then Don, I'm going to end this as, I enjoy the food is the main reason. Well, obviously, Rate Field is the best restaurant possibly in Chicago. And one of the things I would love to see is, in the new ballpark, if it ever gets built, privately financed by Justin Ishbia, is make sure you take the time to make sure that it is a good food spot because, yeah, maybe you want to go to a game, eat some food, take in the ball game, and maybe you don't want to stay the whole time, especially if they're bad, but you're still getting your bang for your buck, that type of stuff. And I think that's what baseball, you're going to laugh at me, but in some ways you almost have to make a dinner theater. Like, even if they're good, like, here's the entertainment, but we also have so much more going on, like the food on that. And then finally, we'll go with Brian, the White Sox, our sleeping giant, get 2 power bats and watch us win. Well, I wish I could be as optimistic. I think they need 3 or 4 power bats, but I love the optimism. Well, anyways, this wraps up this live edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. I'll be back tomorrow with a Way Back Wednesday segment. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding another reason to be concerned with Will Venable's bullpen management, Colson Montgomery doing something Jose Abreu has done in this week's questions you submitted during the live show or comments. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys, for listening. And again, you can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub or at Locked On Sox, or email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.